train your team to learn what to say, what not to say, and who do they escalate that to? What is that policy?
Permission isn't one size fits all. Just because you gave them permission or they've given you permission to teach your child in the studio doesn't mean that they've given permission for you to take them somewhere or to travel with them. Welcome to Beyond the Steps, everybody, produced by Turning Point Dance Creations and Apollo Performance. Honestly, I have been waiting for this one because we had such a powerful month with Amanda. There was so much that I learned, and there's so much I want to say, both as a director and someone who's been teaching and doing this for so long with parents. So I really am excited to jump into this. But before we do, I do want to say just a quick note that Amanda is a lawyer. The conversation was really general information and education. It wasn't legal advice. It's not an attorney-client relationship. So please make sure that you consult an attorney in your area about your specific situation because it differs based on where you are. So please make sure you go and do that, especially if you have a very unique situation. So let's get into it, Bree. What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think starting with episode 1, it was really a conversation a lot about custody and court orders and waivers, right? So the thing that hit me hardest in talking about all of this was realizing how much we have all just been winging it. And, I'm sure there's people out there that are the exception to the rule, but I do believe, just being in this industry for so long and talking to so many different people that do this, we're all sort of in this survival mode hamster wheel so much of the year after year after year after year. And I think sometimes we take it for granted, like nothing's happened, like we're fine. We know these families, we know these people, and I think we talked in episode 4 about or 3 and how it just takes one time and one thing that can bring it all crumbling to the ground. And so we have to protect this thing that we've sacrificed for and that we've built and that we love so much because nobody else is going to do that for us, right? So um like if a parent says, this student is not allowed to be picked up by his or her father, um, we just tend to believe that, right? And I've never been given any documentation, and I've dealt with many, many divorce situations over the years. So Amanda made it really clear verbal isn't enough, and trying to play referee in a custody situation is exactly what gets us into trouble, right? So asking for that documentation is well within your rights and something you should be doing. If something is being asked of you that you don't know to be true or not, because at the end of the day, you're liable for if something, goes awry with that child in your building. What about you, Melissa?
My biggest takeaway is being proactive. Like you said, we're kind of winging it. And I mean, that's what we do. Improv. Like, that's what we do in this industry. That's how you make it. But in this situation, that can be very dangerous to your business, to the children, to your families. And so, having policies that exist before a situation happens, instead of waiting until the moment and you're panicked and you're trying to do the right thing and there's no clear protocol. So, making decisions in that moment that can come back on you can be very detrimental. So doing things in advance and being proactive about your policies and already having them in place is definitely the takeaway that I have from this segment.
Yeah, so I think the two key takeaways for us in this episode, the first one is your studio is not family court. Having a clear written policy and requiring documentation is not cold or unfeeling. It's really the opposite. It's how you're going to protect everyone in your building, including that child that's affected. And Melissa, I'm hearing you say your takeaway is that you need a written policy on from everything from picking up your kid to custody conflicts, like, before you have to use it, not after something already happens, right? So, two really important takeaways from that first episode, I think.
Now, segment 2, I wanted to go run and hide because when I tell you I felt called out, I felt so called out. Amanda was like, "You need this waiver and that waiver and this waiver," and I'm like, I don't have any of those waivers. I think we think we're all covered until someone tells you what a real waiver actually needs to include, like how specific it needs to be. The fact that she was speaking about it needs to cover a very specific action that they are releasing you from liability of. It's not just, oh, you're not liable when the child is here. You're not liable when the child is here doing fill in blank thing. You are not liable when you do X thing. And it's the idea that you have to fill in very specific things so that it becomes conspicuous and not kind of shrouded in mystery was a real call out for me. And I would imagine for all of us.
She really reframed it in a way that, I hadn't thought about it before. I think the key takeaway there is a waiver is only as good as the language that's in it, right? If you haven't had an attorney look at that waiver, that's really all of our homework is to go and make sure that those waivers are being combed through. So really important takeaway there, having somebody put eyes on it and being more clear. And the injury documentation piece really got me too. That was something we needed to hear because I think, again, we go on autopilot so much, especially in the classroom. You have your hour very scheduled out and time budgeted. And, when little things happen, like I scraped my knee or I hit my head, Amanda was the first one to say common sense should prevail, right? Like, use your common sense and when to just mention it to a parent. But we should be documenting incidents probably more than we are. If a kid has to sit out because they hurt their ankle, that was stuff that I just didn't really worry about too much. But those small incidents matter too, and the paper trail matters. So, the takeaway from that being document everything, even the things that seem minor in the moment. A small incident today can become something, a bigger legal issue later. And, of course, still knowing when to use that common sense.
She was saying, "Oh, a basic waiver, the time of the incident, what happened, who was there, what did the kids say, what did you say?" And I'm like, "That's the basic stuff." She listed out so much stuff that it's like, "Oh, okay, I thought that was the detailed version." So I totally was called out by that and grateful that she brought all of those things up.
Yeah, yeah, because I think, we talked about early in the when we first started the conversation with Amanda, I think we wear well, it's no secret, dance educators wear a lot of hats, right? There's a lot of hats maybe they shouldn't wear. There's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure on them to be all things for people that come in that building because there is no regulatory governing body in the industry at all. So we oftentimes are nurses and counselors and psychologists and family mediators and lawyers. We try to be all of these things, none of which we should be or that we're trained to be, and it can get us in trouble. And so, just knowing, when you have to draw the line and how to protect yourself is really, really important. Um, Moving on to episode 3, we talked about high conflict parent situations and conversations, and this one really hit home. I think the piece about staff protection hit me the most and really validated me because that was, very much my instinct when I was in that role, right? Like we don't have these escalations in public. We don't do this in my building, and you certainly don't attack my staff. They are there to do a job and to protect their peace and make sure that they feel comfortable and safe in the workspace that they come to every day. They're there to teach children. They're not there to get into all this nonsense outside of that. So and oftentimes the teachers aren't trained for conflict resolution. So because they're trained to dance and teach and all of those things. So they but knowing that they still become that first face, that first point of contact that a parent goes to and targets when that parent is out of control. And so Amanda was very clear, the job is to de-escalate, don't make promises, don't take sides. Um, don't say anything that can be used against you later. And that takes training. When you get emotions involved and you feel like you're being attacked, there's a lot of things that can spin out of control very quickly. And so, having training, not just a policy, and developing those good instincts is really important. So, my takeaway from this episode was the staff needs a protocol for conflict. It doesn't just need to be in the handbook, it needs to be we're going to sit down and talk about what happens in ABC situations. Train your team to learn what to say, what not to say, and who do they escalate that to? What is that policy?
Right, and make it very standard and very clear for your staff. The big takeaway for me was this: we kind of mixed this between episode 2 and 3. Travel. The travel piece was a great reminder because permission isn't one size fits all. Just because you gave them permission or they've given you permission to teach your child in the studio doesn't mean that they've given permission for you to take them somewhere or to travel with them. And then in a shared custody situation, just because one parent said, "Oh yeah, they can go to this competition or they can participate in competition," or I agree to pay this money doesn't mean that the other parent did. So there are so many things that we need to add immediately to protect us from their conflict so it doesn't spill into our business, and different waivers for different individual things. There's a travel waiver, there's a parent custody waiver, there's a pickup waiver, there's a marketing and promotion waiver, there's an injury waiver. Like there are waivers for everything, because going back to what we said before, you have to be specific. So you can't just have this general waiver if you really want to protect yourself should it come to it. So
Which I think happens most of the time. Like, I think everybody tries to just combine it into one document, and Amanda actually said, "No, that is not what we want you to do. We want you to have a very clear language related to every scenario and giving it to them to sign at the time that's appropriate." Which I thought was really interesting because it's counterintuitive to, I think, what happens now.
So my key takeaway was, everything carries a specific legal responsibility: travel, competition events, injury, everything. And especially when custody is involved, it has to be very, very specific. So know your requirements before you are in a very bad situation.
This series once again has been very educational, I think, and very beneficial for oftentimes we talk to studio owners and families and parents and kids. And yes, all of those things apply, but I definitely think this is a really valuable conversation for the studio owner. We are all about education here on Beyond the Steps. And our Steps initiative course is no different. We have a free 5-piece module that incorporates, it's going to give you educational resources and evidence based research for you to learn more on your own on all things like racism and gender inequity, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, dance, medicine, and science, and how those things apply to performance athletes. It's a kind of go at your own pace type of thing. It's completely free. So we're going to pop that link into the comment section for you. Share it, have your families. We have staff take it, we have kids take it, parents. It's just meant to be education because when we know better, we do better. That's the premise of this show. For everybody that's listening to this episode, go back and watch this series and all of our episodes at Apollo Performance and Turning TP Dance Creations on YouTube and Facebook. We have some fantastic content. This series has been amazing. Go back and watch it from episode 1 all the way through today. Please remember, if you're listening to this conversation with Amanda Wright, all of our conversations with her are for general information and education purposes only. It's not legal advice. It's not a binding attorney-client relationship for you. Every child custody situation is different. So you want to find somebody in your area that can give you specific advice to your situation, and always talk with a lawyer in your area. Every month we try to bring in someone who gives our community something real and actionable. And Amanda did that in spades. I feel like the series is one of those resources that people are going to come back to again and again and again. I hope they do. It was really helpful for me. So I hope it was for everybody out there too.
I completely agree. And I just want to say to everyone listening, this isn't about being scared. I know you might be walking away going, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?" It's about being empowered. It's about the knowledge. It's about, knowing what you need. And when you have the right policies in place, you're actually showing up more fully for your students and families and not just panicking in the moment or just winging it. So please don't be scared.
Yeah, it goes back to when you know better, you do better. We say that all every single week on the show. And now that you know what you need, now you can do something about it. And so it's empowering. It's not meant to be scary. And if you're not doing all of this, remember, you don't have to do all of it at once. Baby step it. Baby step it. Start with that cleaning up your waivers that you have. And then what can you do from there? So, That's a wrap on April. We're going to see you back here in May with a whole new series with Damian Harmon, and we're going to be exploring grief in all of its forms, how it affects the studio environment from students to families and staff. We hope you can join us. Until then, we hope you continue your